Welcome back into the Republic of Football interrogation room. I'm here to grill college football insider Mike Craven on his power poll. Craven, people got to ask, you're ranking 13 teams from the SEC to Conference USA. How do you put them in a 1 through 13 list?
Yeah, I think the easy way to do it would be just rank them the way the AP poll would rank them, right? Just the best team to the worst team. But it's not very fun, and it would always be the P4 probably up top, Texas A&M in the top spot. So we try to look at it more like a pound-for-pound list, like the way boxing or MMA would do it. Like a middleweight's never going to beat the heavyweight, but maybe the middleweight champion is a better middleweight than the heavyweight champion is a heavyweight. So I try to look at it that way. It's still Texas at the top because of how good they are, but I try to look at it as compared to their conference, who are the best teams.
Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, let's run down the list. 1 through 13, at the top, we got the Texas Longhorns coming off the college football playoff appearance. Number 2, Texas A&M Aggies. Number 3, Texas State Bobcats. 4, UTSA. 5, Texas Tech. 6, TCU. 7, SMU. 8, Baylor. 9, North Texas. 10, Rice. 11, Sam Houston. 12, Houston. And 13, UTEP. Now, Craven, I know you made this list a couple weeks ago. Let's put this out there. This is a living, breathing document. This can almost change by the day.
Yeah. It's not what it looks like in the magazine.
So what was the hardest team to place on this list?
I think it's Texas State, UTSA, right? Because I don't think Texas State is the third best team in the state. But I do think that they are one of the teams that can go win their conference. I think the Sun Belt is there for them to win. Some of that's about Texas State. Some of that's about James Madison being under a coaching change, Troy being under a coaching change. We don't know what App is. Maybe they're the favorite out there right now. But yeah, I think Texas State has a really good chance to win the Sun Belt. I think UTSA in the American has a really good chance to win that one as well with the offensive and defensive line they have. So where to put those two teams is I think that on a neutral field, Texas Tech would probably beat both of those two teams. Mm-hmm. But I think those two teams have a better chance of winning their conference than Tech does, Mm-hmm. And so I think that to me is the hardest part about ranking this thing about individual teams is how to slot them next to their conference foes.
Yeah, and Manny Pacquiao would probably lose to George Foreman, which is why we added this note down here in the fine print. Teams are measured against the overall strength of their conference/schedule. Okay. I got some questions here, Craven. Number 2, Texas A&M, new head coach, lackluster year last year. Why are they number 2?
Yeah, some of this is my belief in Mike Elko.
Okay.
It's funny, right? We talk about this a lot on the show, how coaching changes are a lot like dating, and you go the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. And as media members, we're guilty of having favorites and people that we like or not like. I think one of the reasons Texas Tech went into last year so high hyped is that everybody likes Joey, and so
Mm-hmm.
you kind of buy into it. After going from Jimbo and being in those press conferences and having some interviews with Jimbo to doing it with Mike Elko, you're like, this is so much better. Yep. You talk to Torian York, you talk to Trey Zune, which they gave me for the magazine, and they both talked about discipline and just the little things that Mike Elko is bringing. So long answer, I think they've always had the talent. They've always been talented enough to punch up into the tier 1 of the SEC. If they're disciplined and organized and player-led and more cohesive and then just better structurally, well, they should go win 8 or 9 mm-hmm. games. To me, and this year, I don't think that there's that many great teams in the state, and that means that A&M, if they go 9-3 in the SEC, they're going to be the second best team in the state.
Okay, you just said not a lot of great teams in the state. What is your overall opinion of the power poll in the year we're about to have in Texas college football?
Yeah, I think it's a down year. I think it's a down year for the state of Texas. A lot of it because of the quarterback position, and some of it's unknown. Texas Tech could be a dark horse in the Big 12, but what's Baron Morton's health? Mm-hmm. TCU could make a run in the Big 12. They did it in 2022 when we didn't think it was coming. What's Josh Hoover's health? He missed the spring. Willie Fritz is a new coach at Houston. We have no idea what's happening at Baylor. Your guess is as good as mine there, right? And so at the top, SMU. They won 11 games last year. They've turned the corner as a program. They're doing great in NIL and the transfer portal, but they were 0-3 against the P4 next year. How are they going to do? And so, UTEP, who knows? Sam Houston loses 5 games by 5 plays, right? So there's just so much. North Texas, I think, had 7 or 8 games where they were within 1 score with 4 minutes left, and they lose most of those games.
Mallory's shaking her head yes over there.
So
I see it.
There's just so much coin flip here. And it just feels like Texas is the only true kind of known, which is also a crazy statement because in your lifetime, how much have we talked about Texas being known and then they're not, And so we're counting on Texas to live up to expectations, and folks my age know how perilous that can be sometimes. So it just feels like an odd year in the state where it feels on paper like a down year, but it felt like that going into 2022, and then TCU played for national championship.
So with all the unknowns in mind, we did an episode a couple weeks ago about the biggest variance on teams. We could see them going 3-9, we could see them going 9-3. You probably have a lot to choose from, but what's the biggest variance team you see on this list?
It's tough. I could probably talk about 6 teams here. I'll talk about North Texas, just so Mallory keeps being engaged in the episode here. I think North Texas, with their offense and Chandler Morris coming in, that wide receiver room, I'm just a big believer in what Eric Morris does offensively. They're going to score points. And the American, being what the American is, they're going to be in a lot of one-possession games in the fourth quarter that just come down to a score, come down to a defensive stop or an offensive stop. North Texas, to me, is a lot like SMU, the year before, where the first year Rhett Lashley was there, they scored a lot of points, and their defense was really bad. And then year 2, the defense caught up with the offense, and they go and win the AAC championship. I don't know if North Texas makes that kind of jump, but if they can go from the 131st scoring defense to the 71st scoring defense, they can win 8 or 9 games. If they stay the 131st worst defense in FBS, they're probably going to win 4 or 5. So it feels like they have, if you flash forward to November, October, or December, and you're like, North Texas is 8-3 going into the last game. I'm like, yeah, I can see it. If you're like, they're 3-8 going into the last game, I'm like, yeah, I kind of see that too.
There's a couple of teams like we mentioned there that could be either way at the very end of the year. UTSA at number 4. Surely this is just Craven being a homer. They lost Frank Harris. They lost Rashad Wisdom.
Yeah.
How are they number 4 in your power poll?
Yeah, I saw something the other day that UTSA has the second best odds in the G5 to win the playoff spot. So I don't think it's just me, but they really, really like their roster. I think it's important for everybody to remember that the Frank Harris they saw in 2023 was not the Frank Harris from 2022 and 2021. They've already played without superstar Frank Harris. They did it last year, basically, with 4 knee surgeries and 6 months Frank Harris, right?
Yep.
So I think we've seen the quarterback position and them be able to kind of get through that. Owen McCown's played well in a bowl game, 19 of 21 against Tennessee. So I think they're going to be okay there. What gives me confidence in UTSA this year is the lines of scrimmage. They're 2 years removed from playing a walk-on defensive lineman at left tackle in a conference game. This year, they got a true 2-deep. And you can go to a lot of Big 12 schools, and they don't have a true 2-deep at offensive line, right? UTSA feels like they have 8, 9, even 10 offensive linemen that they can trust. And then on the flip side of that, Joe Evans, the guys at defensive tackle there are as good as it gets. I don't think you can find better lines of scrimmage in the American than you can at UTSA.
Well, we've talked about there's a power vacuum in the new Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma. And we got 4 Texas teams in this new Big 12 with Texas Tech at number 5, TCU at number 6, Baylor at number 8, and Houston down at number 12. I know right now we got Texas Tech the highest. Is that the team you would say has the best chance to win the Big 12 this year?
If Baron Morton plays 10 games, yes.
Okay.
I don't know.
So context matters, everyone.
Yes, it does. Like, it's just, if you tell me Baron Morton plays all spring and there's no questions about his shoulder, Texas Tech's 3 on this list. Okay. Right? Like, I think the wide receiver core is really good. I think the offensive lineman that they brought in through the portal is solid. I'm a Tim DeRuyter guy on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to be good there. They're never going to be Georgia, but they're going to be good on that side of the ball. The schedule is excellent. You look at Tech's schedule, it sets up perfectly for them. So Tech would have been 3rd on my list, but I don't know. I don't think anybody knows how healthy Baron Morton's going to be in October. I don't think much of the question is if he's going to be ready for game 1. It's just, what does that arm look like as the season goes on? If you right now can go like, yeah, Baron Morton starts 10 games, then I think Tech is that. If Baron Morton only plays 4 games, 5 games, give me TCU. I think their skill positions are really good. I think they did a great job in the transfer portal. They believe in Josh Hoover. Cam Cook's going to be solid at running back. I really like Andy Avalos bringing in at defensive coordinator. They're going to be more aggressive. So without Baron Morton, I think in the magazine, TCU's ahead of Tech on the power poll. And it's because the Baron Morton stuff happened between this poll and that poll.
Yeah, Baron Morton obviously missed the back half of spring ball. Yeah. He's down, rehabbing that shoulder. So Texas Tech the last 2 years has rotated through 3 quarterbacks.
Yes.
That's been the name of the game in Lubbock.
Yeah.
Texas A&M has a new head coach and they're number 2. Houston has a new head coach and they're number 12. What's going on in Coug Nation?
Yeah, transfer portal. right? Like you look at A&M's transfer portal class, and even losing Walter Nolan, even losing Evan Stewart, I think they added better. Their imports are better than their exports.
Yes.
Right? Even if it's not star ranking that true, like personality-wise, team-wise, like I think that they got better through the portal. It'd be hard to argue Houston got better through the portal. Like they got ravished through the portal. And I think long-term, Houston is going to be in a better position. Like we've talked about this in the office, right? Willie Fritz is Novocaine. Give it some time, it's going to work. But year one ain't that, right? Year one usually isn't that for Willie Fritz. I think that's going to be true in Houston. 3, 4, 5 wins, I think, is what they're going to end up with. Just because I don't know how you turn over a roster that way without, all the money NIL A&M has to bring in stars.
Yeah, Willie Fritz is like Dalton Roadhouse. It'll get worse before it gets better. Now, the bottom half of this list, 10 through 13 right here, who's a team you could see by the end of the season we're talking about they're in the top half of the list?
That's a good, maybe Sam Houston. Because this is a pound-for-pound list, and again, I don't think Sam Houston becomes one of the 6 best teams in the state. But I think with Conference USA and all the close games that they were in last year, if they win 3 out of those 5, all of a sudden they're a 7, 8, 9 win team. Maybe at the top half of Conference USA. And how you do in your conference, how you are compared to your conference is everything to me. That's how I kind of do this list, right? And so it's harder before the season. As the season goes on, it gets a little easier because then you can relate to like where, hey, they're 3rd in Conference USA. Tech is 7th in the Big 12. That's why I have Sam Houston above them, right? Yeah. So I think Sam can be that team to climb up. Some of that's because Conference USA isn't all that good. And some of it is because they were in such close games that maybe the year of losing those equals a year of winning most of those.
All right, well, to the fans, I hope I did a good job of grilling Craven here. Is there anything else that I need to ask you about Craven on this list? Any other team here that sticks out?
Rice sticks out to me.
Okay, because they're very intact.
Yes, they bring back like 17 starters, something crazy like that. I think it's like 8 on one side of the ball, 7 on the other. I'm not good at math. I guess that's 15 starters plus Dean Connors played a lot. So, I think Rice is right there. It's just their ceiling. Like some of these other teams, I feel like their ceiling is high. I think the floor is higher for Rice. Like they're a high floor program. I don't know if they're a high ceiling program. So, I think a great season for Rice is 7 wins.
Yes.
Right? Speaking to your variance point, I don't think the variance is that high for Rice.
And the problem is they're at 10.
5, 7, 6 and 6, 7 and 5 feels like the variance for Rice right there. And so that they become a hard one for me because I like their squad. I think they're a better squad than they have been each year. Mike Bloomgren makes that roster better. But I just don't know how they get to 8, 9 wins just with the barriers that Rice faces.
Do you think Rice gets to 8 or 9 wins? Like, let's say, okay, we all think Mike Bloomgren probably needs to win 7 games this year.
Yeah.
Has he reached Rice's ceiling?
Yeah, I think he's bumping up against it. I think the thing for Rice, at least in the history I know, is that they've always kind of broken through for the 8, 9 win season, but then they have a lot of 4, 3, 5 win seasons. I think Bloomgren got there and was like, hey, yeah, sure, we all as coaches want to raise the ceiling, but I need to raise the floor.
Yes.
Like I may not, sure, I want to get to 9, 10 wins, but first we need to prevent the 2, 3 win seasons. And I think he's made Rice into one of those programs that isn't going to bottom out. And in my opinion, I'm not a Rice fan, so I'm sure they believe differently, but in my opinion, that's the best you can do at Rice, is eliminate those 2, 3 win seasons. And maybe you don't get to 9, 10 wins, win a conference like Bailiff did, but if you can always be 7 and 5, 6 and 6, 8 and 4, if you can always be in a bowl game, like if Rice is playing in December more often than not, historically, that's pretty great.
It's a win.
The problem with college athletics, and you know this, right? It's never enough. Like getting to your ceiling isn't enough. You need to break through it and find a new one. You need to create a new ceiling. And so that's my worry for Bloomgren is he does everything right, makes this program better and better and better every year. But this is a fundraising deal. This is a call, you're in the American now. You just change for change's sake. And maybe it's just not good enough, but we'll see.
All right, we've picked this power poll apart. This is the de facto offseason power poll, I would say. We're going to come back and revisit this when the season kicks off in the fall for August. But until then, that's Mike Craven. I'm Carter Yates signing off on the ROF podcast. Podcast over.